Good morning, brothers and sisters. It's Wednesday in Eastertide, and I just beautifully love the gospel, which today is the story of two of the disciples who were on the Emmaus Road traveling. Why they were going there, we don't know. They weren't one of the 11. Remember, Jesus had many disciples, and there were two men traveling to Emmaus, and this stranger joins them. And it's interesting. This, by the way, the gospel is St. Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 35. And they had been hoping that Jesus would be the one to set Israel free. So their hope was on the human level. And when the element of the supernatural, beyond this realm, resurrection event happened, they were unable to cope with it. Now, up to this point, they themselves had not seen Jesus. They had heard about these two women who were at the tomb and declared it empty, and so they'd heard about it, but they didn't believe it because their own mindset was in a different realm. Their eyes were not opened. I don't have time to read the whole gospel right now. I mean, go to the live stream mass. You'll hear, if you're here really closely, you'll hear Father Gary proclaiming it in a wonderful way, and that's not my task today. But I think we're all familiar with the story of the Emmaus Road. So Jesus is explaining the scriptures from the Old Testament prophets, how all these things had to be fulfilled. But their eyes still weren't open. They were not open to receive the word because of their preconceptions. I'm saying this because I think this is a lot like us, with our preconceptions of what our faith is, what it is, and how we relate particularly to the world. Now remember, here are two people, disciples of Jesus. They've seen his miracles and they've heard his teaching, yet they still think in a natural way this is the one who is going to set Israel free. You have to remember that in AD 60, the Romans flattened Jerusalem, but that was because 3 years prior to that, the uprisings of the Jewish rebel element had got so strong that the Romans had enough and they crushed the rebellion. So there were lots of false liberators back in the time of Christ. It was a time of great turmoil. So we need to put that in perspective. The other thing I want to put in perspective is, if any of you have been listening to our parish priest live stream messages this week, thank you, Father Gary, you'll know that he has challenged us to read through the book of Acts. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And I just want to say that the book of Acts was written by, we believe it was written by Luke, who wrote the gospel, and therefore it really, chapter 24 of the book of Luke is the prelude to the book of Acts. Acts is a continuation of it. Boy, I'm almost out of time, but let me just say this. It was an act of hospitality by those two disciples on the road to Emmaus that opened their eyes. They said, you've got to come in, don't keep walking, come in, spend the night with us. And Jesus was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. Is that not so significant to us as believers? Jesus makes himself known to us through the breaking of the bread of the Eucharist. Brothers and sisters, we need to pray for one another and pray for those who are dying and mourning. We'll be on a prayer group tonight at 8 o'clock on Zoom. God bless you. This is John Ruffle saying Jesus is Lord.